Welcome to Blender. In this video here, I'm just going to quickly run through some of the basic principles of Blender, just so that you're aware of what you can do and how it's set up and sort of the difference between the object mode and the edit mode. All right, so you always get the splash screen and Blender is always being updated, which is pretty cool, and it's become a pretty powerful tool. So this is how when you first start off, this is your first scene, and it has all the basics of what you would need to render something. First of all, you've got to have an object. All right, in this case, the object is a three-dimensional object. It's a cube, and we'll talk a little bit more about how that's made. But there are two other things that are present in the scene. You always need a light. So if there was no light, you wouldn't be able to view this object. So there is a light there. And then there's also a camera to take a picture of whatever object you've created. This plane here does not get rendered. It's just for you to sort of have a reference. And we're working in three-dimensional space. So 3 dimensions means that you have, and just sort of down here, you can see the X, Y, and Z axes. And in Blender's case, X, as you can see here, is running along this way. This red line, it matches up here. Y is sort of left to right. And then Z is the up and down dimension. Okay, so that's why it's 3D. 2D, you'd only have probably X and Y. Okay, in 3D, you have 3 dimensions. So every object is located based on those 3 points. Now, if I open up this little menu here, you can see the location. Now that's the camera. If I click on the cube, it's located at the origin. Okay, X, Y, and Z are all set to 0 there. If I move this along, and this is sort of a transform widget, you can use it. So if I'm going to move it along the Y axis, I just drag it along here. Oops, sorry. And there we go. We can see it moving. And if you look up to this top right as I do this, you can see that the numbers are changing as we move it. We translate it along the y-axis. Conversely, I can do it along the x-axis here. Okay, and then also the z-axis. Now, one thing you can do sort of as a little bit of a shortcut is press G on your keyboard, and G sort of stands for grab. And when you do that, you can move it sort of anywhere you like. Okay, now it's a little bit tricky to place it exactly where you want when you're looking from this perspective view. And we'll talk about that in a second. But as you can see, you can move it around. Now let's actually look at what makes up this object. So in object mode, you can't see too much detail. But what I'm going to do is change it to edit mode. And you can also do that by going tab. Now, three-dimensional, when we're modeling, things are made up of sort of 3 components. But the basis is these dots, okay? And these dots are called, well, one is called a vertex, plural is vertices, okay? And so I've checked one vertice there, I've selected it. Now if I right click, okay, using the right button on my mouse, then I can see another one, okay? Click on another one. If I hold shift, I can select multiple vertices, okay? So I've selected 4 there. Now, just going back, if I select 2 vertices, you'll notice that this line shows up here. And so what I've actually selected is an edge. So between 2 points, the line that makes them up is known as an edge. And actually down here, you can see we're on vertex select mode, and we could change it to edge select mode. So if I click on that one, now I can go around and select specific edges. Okay. Conversely, if I have 1, 2, 3, and 4, then 4 edges sort of connected together, I can select a face. And so just down here as well, we've got face select mode. So now you can see there's these little dots here that represent the faces. So depending on the mode you're in, vertex select mode, we can see the vertices. Edge select mode, the vertices disappear, but you can select the edges. And then faces, they put those little dots so that you're actually able to select an individual face. All right. And so that's basically what a 3D object is made up of. Now I'm just going to draw your attention up here. This actually tells you how many vertices, how many edges, and how many faces the object has, and then also how many you've selected. So on faces, well, this is like a dice, right? A die, I guess. And well, dice, singular is dice. You'd have 6 sides, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right, on a regular die. So that's where that comes in. I've selected 1. If I select multiple, you can see that I've selected 2 or 3 out of the 6 there. If I press A, it actually selects none, and then A again, it selects all. All right, now in terms of edges, you've got 12 edges. Okay, you can count them if you want to make sure. And then vertices, you've got these corners, so 4 on top, 4 on the bottom, and that gives you your 8 vertices, right? So that's a 3D object. And of course they get more complicated than this, but that's your basic idea. Now a couple other things that we can do here. We can change the view mode. So here, the typical one is to go from solid, which it's in, to wireframe. So with wireframe now you're sort of viewing through, you've got X-ray vision, and you can see into and through the object. This will become important when we're doing the modeling of the yellow submarine. All right, couple other things there. This you can see there's a shortcut Z. So if I do Z, we can alternate in between those two. All right, and you can actually do some editing here. So I'm just going to do something really simple. So let's just say you wanted a hollow box. Well, I'm going to just take that face, and I can just hit delete, the delete key on the keyboard. And you've got a choice. What do I want to delete? Vertices, edges, faces. I want to delete the face here. And now you've actually got a hollow empty box. Okay, so I'm zooming in with the middle mouse button, and you can see that the box is now empty. If I wanted to make it a tube, hey, delete that other face, and now it's sort of see-through. Okay, Control Z will undo, so I'm just going to undo a few things here. Okay, put that back together. I'm going to go to edge select mode, and you can grab an individual edge and say pull it up. Okay, whatever you want to do there. All right, so now I've just done an edge, and same with vertices. Okay, so I can grab an individual vertice and pull that over. Okay, so just giving you sort of some different things you can do. Of course, you can delete that vertice as well. But if you do that, you delete quite a bit because it was the faces were dependent on that one vertice. All right. Okay, let's just, again, I'm just going to undo that, go back to where we were. A couple other things, excuse me, in object mode. Just bring that back to where we were. There we go. I think that's normal. I'm going to go back to object mode. So I'm going to press tab, but you could always change here. A couple other things you can do. We were on the translate widget, okay, or the transform widget. Translate, I guess, is a better one. Here is rotation. So then you can rotate. So again, I'm rotating it around the Z axis. You can see it on here too. This number is changing. Okay, I could rotate it on the, in this case, well, it's just because it's turned around here. That would be the Z axis. Let me just get it back to where it was, 0. So I could rotate it along the X axis, okay? And then if I bring it back, I could rotate it around the Y axis there, okay? So that will be important again when we do our animation on our submarine. A couple other things are one other thing there is also there's a scale tool, and a scale tool allows you to stretch. So I can stretch one way, stretch another way, stretch it this way, okay? Or make it smaller, either way. Okay, whatever you want to do. And the other thing is if you grab from the middle, you can scale it. Whoops, I shouldn't have done it so close there. You can, well, it sort of forces there. You can make it bigger or smaller there in all 3 dimensions. Now, if you hit S, S also lets you scale, okay? And I think, if I remember correctly, R does too. R lets you rotate, but you can't really choose your axis as well. Okay, so those tools there are your transform manipulators, the translate, the rotate, rotate, and the scale. Okay, don't worry too much about these other things. We'll discuss them as we go here. Now, just before we sort of end this video, I'm just going to delete the cube, And what we'll do is add a mesh, and the mesh that we'll add is a monkey. So the monkey's down here, and so just zoom in on the monkey here. And what you can see right away is it's much more complex. In fact, there's 507 vertices, 500 faces, and in terms of faces, 500 faces, and then the edges, where do the edges go? We've got edges are missing from up there. But anyways, we've got a lot more stuff going on. Okay, we can see the edges now that we're in edit mode. So it is a much more complex, much more detailed mesh, and you can see it's kind of cool. It's hollow inside. Okay, so I'm sort of looking. There's the monkey's nose from the inside and the eyes, and then looking down into its sort of mouth area there. So this is all constructed basically out of those vertices, and then those connected edges, and then the faces. All right, and of course you can hit wireframe as well, and you can see it's pretty complex. Good. So I think that gives you a little bit of an overview. We'll start the yellow submarine, and then I'll really discuss the views, which should come up as very important when we start the submarine. Okay? See you then.